What do you make of the readout?
Well, Carol, we're still looking at this readout as it comes in and as we're trying to interpret its meaning. We are not seeing a clear-cut signal that China has given its blessing to this framework agreement that was unveiled by Chinese negotiators and U.S. negotiators after 2 days of talks in Madrid. There were very few details on that accord at the time, but our reporting has shown, as Ed has pointed out just now, that Oracle, as well as Andreessen Horowitz and Silver Lake Capital Management, would be among the U.S. buyers of TikTok's U.S. operations should approval actually come down from the Chinese side. Donald Trump, for his part, of course, is eager to see this deal go through. He wants TikTok to stay viable in the U.S. He credits it with his election comeback victory, but we have not heard from the president yet, Ed.
Shep, more headlines and another red headline on the Bloomberg terminal. Xi has asked for the U.S. to avoid undermining the outcomes from recent talks. I think that's a signal politically, right? And remember, these headlines are from a readout from China's state news agency. We also have another headline on TikTok. China would like to see the companies find resolution to the TikTok issue, according to Xi. Again, Mike, we're following this in real time, but we're learning about China's attitude. We still don't have the concrete details of what the structure of a U.S. TikTok is.
Well, that's right. And it also doesn't sound like China is giving its full thumbs up there. It sounds like Xi Jinping is signaling that there are still some objections and that maybe something came up during the call with President Donald Trump that gave China pause. We did even hear from Trump yesterday a bit of a non-committal tone, not quite a full walk back of what we heard at the beginning of the week following this framework agreement between the two sides on trade, but especially on TikTok. But he was saying, we'll see. Those were his exact words in a Fox interview, and that's usually a signal from the president that there may be more work to do. So we're still waiting, Ed, to hear what the U.S. version of events is and whether they think that they are any closer or perhaps further away when it comes to talks. It does sound like there are a lot of business issues still to resolve, including from the Chinese point of view. Ed, remember, this is key to understand. China does not want to sell TikTok. It wants to see ByteDance hold on to this, and if it is sold, it wants to keep control of the algorithm and not see its company. ByteDance is considered a real star in the Chinese tech universe. It does not want to see it diminished in any way. So there has to be a hefty price paid for this, and it also does not want to see the valuable algorithm transferred in any way to U.S. owners.
We're just going to try and bring up a chart because Oracle is still trading higher, but only by a percentage point now. It has actually pulled back from its highs directly on the readout coming from the Chinese state press right now. Of course, Oracle's name in the mix for any sort of coalition of companies that were looking to be buying TikTok's US unit. Now we can see that it's just come off of its highs. So it looks as though, as you interpret, Mike, that indeed this doesn't feel like a done deal yet. And indeed that we are still trying to get the intricacies of what China says it likes to see companies to find resolution to TikTok issue. Of course, we need the US interpretation of all of this. Next steps, Mike, therefore, because we were hoping that maybe other things were being considered in their phone call, not just TikTok, but NVIDIA and many more.
Well, that's right. There are a host of trade issues between the two sides to resolve. And I'm glad you brought up NVIDIA because the question of export controls that have restricted the chip maker's ability to sell its AI products in China have been a major sticking point between the two sides. We've seen Jensen Huang really advocate here in Washington over the past 9 months for a relaxation of the U.S. export controls, but he's also run into some headwinds in China, which is also moving to discourage Chinese companies from buying the company's chips. So there is a lot at stake, and it's unclear whether Donald Trump used this call to try to go to bat for Jensen Huang and NVIDIA. The president has signaled his openness to the idea of perhaps selling a downgraded version of the new Blackwell line of AI chips in China. But again, you know, that is a multi-step process in terms of relaxing those export controls. And it's unclear whether this would factor into the conversation. Jensen Huang, for his part, certainly would like it to. They're feeling the sense of urgency in China, where Huawei is really moving ahead by leaps and bounds when it comes to developing its AI chips and finding ways to deploy them in a way to better compete with NVIDIA, as we just saw yesterday, Kara.